Preparing. Hello, hello, hello. I think that we are ready to go. I think we're live, right? Hey, everybody. It's Marquesa Tucker Harris, Executive Director of the African American Roundtable. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We want to give you guys an opportunity to get into the conversation, to share the live, and also prepare to be with us for about 45 minutes of your time to talk to you guys about some Northwest Side elections happening in Aldermanic Districts 5 and 9, and also give you some updates on the unfortunate youth prison that folks want to bring to the far Northwest Side. Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. Again, share the link. Again, my name is Marquesa Tucker Harris, Executive Director of the African American Roundtable, and I have our Community Program Manager, Raisha Farmer, here with us. I'm going to bring you in, Rai. Come on, come on, come on. Get into this conversation. Again, welcome. Happy Monday to everybody. We had some beautiful sunshine today. Want to take a moment to bring you all into the conversation along with Raisha with our Community Connector question, Rai. Are you ready for the question, Rai?
Yeah, good evening, everybody.
Hey, y'all, we want you guys to also answer the question in the chat. So, right, do you have any Valentine's Day plans, and or you can talk about some of your Black History Month highlights? What you got?
Yeah, I don't have Valentine's Day planned. I will be at home, rubbing my feet together under a blanket, watching a show.
Okay.
Me and my friends talked about maybe doing like a Valentine's dinner. We haven't set that yet, but we'll see. Just wanted to be around some Black women and eat and love each other. So maybe that. Black History Month highlights. I don't know that I have a whole lot, as I've been working with the African American Roundtable's membership political education committee to prepare for an offering that we have for Black History Month. We are going to be studying both with our members, and the public are invited to study abolition and what that means for us, and dig in and talk about our understanding of abolition, our feelings around abolition, what comes up for us and what makes it hard to see a world where police and so forth are abolished. So yeah, we will be leading that session on the 25th, Saturday the 25th. And at the end of this live, we'll announce where you can sign up to join us.
Get in where you fit in. Black Abolition Education for Black History Month. Thank you for sharing that, Rye. All right, so what are my plans? Tomorrow, I don't have any plans. Every day is Valentine's Day. Oh, how about that? And then for Black History Month, every day is Black History Month. I don't have like these major plans around what I'm doing because this is stuff that I'm celebrating. I celebrate love all day, every day. And I also celebrate Black History Month 365 days. Like, I am Black History. I walk around, live it, smell it, breathe it, walk it, create it with you and our beautiful people in this beautiful city. So I'm super duper excited to get into this conversation. Wait, before I go any further, did anybody drop? I don't see any comments, y'all. What are y'all doing do y'all celebrate Black History every day? Do y'all celebrate Valentine's Day tomorrow? Are y'all expecting roses, flowers, candy, dinner? Are y'all getting your kids something? So make sure you drop what you guys are doing in the chat. We want to be able to engage with the community as well. We're super excited to be having this conversation, very specifically around some very interesting developments that have been happening in Aldermanic District 9 and 5, where we're doing work. So, Rye, you have been pretty busy over the last, I would say, 2.5 months or so, prior to us even going on our winter break. Can you chat with folks and tell us a little bit about just an overview of 5 and 9, and then we'll get into some questions?
Yeah, of course. So overview. So first of all, Aldermanic Districts 5 and 9 are the farthest north and west districts. I always say the easiest way to break it down is upwards of 60th Street, upwards of Hampton Avenue to County Line Roads and 124th. And yeah, both seats are vacant, have been vacant since I think the catalyst event was when former Mayor Tom Barrett stepped back from his seat to take an appointment that shifted some things in our city council. And so we elected interim mayor Cavalier Johnson. Leaving his seat as an alderperson means that alder seat is now open. He brought in some appointments to the budget committee and some other things. And also just because of, folks' personal lives, a number of seats on the city council have been open. 2 of the seats that are currently open, even after the recent election, are Aldermanic Districts 5 and 9 after Nikia Dodd stepped down and Shantia Lewis was removed from her seat. So those seats are open. Folks are getting ready for elections and figuring out how they can get to know all of the candidates. I think there's between 5 and 9, and also Aldermanic District 1 is also open right now. There's 15 candidates between those 3 seats. So folks are figuring out, who do I vote for? Who are these people? What's going to happen? Who's going to be my leader or my voice? And in the midst of all of that, in AD9 specifically, but surprise, they're also talking about it in 5, there is a youth prison slated to come to 7930 West Clinton Avenue. It's off of 76th Street near Abundant Faith Church. And yeah, a lot of the residents in 89 have a lot of feelings about this prison that's coming and the process at which it was brought to the district. So those things are happening among, all of the divestment, all the things we already know that are happening in ADs 5 and 9, lack of information access, lack of funding in their communities, folks just, finding their way and trying to do the best thing they can for their families.
Thanks, Rye, for giving us that overview of what it is that we're going to be chatting about. Some of the stuff, so much stuff that we already know. I want to remind folks that the African American Roundtable, we do non-partisan civic engagement work. What does that mean? It means that we are not aligning with any candidates. We're not telling folks who to vote for. We simply provide the information so that you all are able to engage in this work and make well-informed decisions with whoever you have as an option. So just wanted to preface that. Again, we're a C3 nonpartisan organization who doesn't align with any candidate. We only are providing information, again, for you guys to make a well-informed decision. So with that, Rye, let's give them some basic information. What are the key election dates that people need to be thinking about right now?
Yes, so the upcoming one, the one that's most urgent, actually next Tuesday is Election Day. Both, I think the Supreme Court election is going to be there, but there's also, for folks who are voting for their alderpersons, again, ADs 5, 9, and 1, next Tuesday, February 21st is Election Day. Polls should be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. If you have a absentee ballot, make sure you figure out how you get your absentee ballot in well before the 21st. And if early voting is an option for you, make sure you figure out those options as well. But the first date is February 21st. The primary election is happening for alderpersons. And that just means, of all these 15 candidates, who are the final 2? Who are the last 2 standing? Who will be elected after April 4th, which will be the general election date between the final candidates. And we'll find out who our alderpersons are for these districts. You're muted, Marquesa.
Thanks. Thanks, Rye, for all of that really important information in those dates. So, Rye, where can people find more information about how to develop a voting plan? And again, to just get reminders about those dates.
Yep, I always encourage folks to go to myvote.wi.gov, and we'll drop that into the Facebook chat so folks can have access to that now and later. But my vote came about around 2020 when we felt like the world was crashing down in terms of electoral politics, but it continues to be a good information source about polling places, who's my municipal clerk that I need to return my absentee ballot to, when are the polls open, where is my polling location, how long are polls open. I think there's even a phone number on there to the Wisconsin Election Commission and a hotline in case you're having problems at the polls for some reason. Got God forbid. But yeah, all the information that you need to create a voting plan is on myvote.wi.gov.
Excellent information. Thank you so much, Rod. So let's get into the bread and butter first. Let's talk about what have you been learning? What have you been finding out? What candidates are doing what? Where have they been? What are they talking about? And most important, what are residents saying?
Yeah. So this is a conglomerate of information from me just setting up meetings with candidates individually, attending a few of their campaign events, and a couple of forums that I've attended. But essentially, there's all the basics that folks are always concerned about across the city. How do I access my elected official? I never hear from them after election days. And so, what's folks' plans to get information out? And there's been everything from like an app to a survey being created in AD5, to folks talking about podcasts and newsletters and regular meetings. I think one candidate has talked about setting up a meeting in AD5. Once a month, they'll visit a local business and residents should be invited to come and meet them at the business. And other folks have also talked about there's already these existing places in the district. Like in AD9, we have the Granville Advisory Committee. And so, yeah, how are we activating people who are in local groups to meet? So there's lots of conversation around the creative ways that folks can get information to residents and be accessible to residents because they hear that concern. There's also the standard concerns around the city about city services, my trash pickup. People are dumping behind my business or behind my house or in the alley where my kid is going to school or whatever. The potholes, the streets. I'm sick of bumping around as I'm going throughout the far northwest side and from the northwest side to other parts of the city. And, how are we funding city services, the financial crisis that the city is in, and how can we be creative about bringing money to the city of Milwaukee or even reallocating and reprioritizing how we spend money in the city of Milwaukee through our budget process. So those standard conversations that we've been having and hearing in our families and our work for years are ongoing. And I can speak to sort of the top line highlight issues in each of the districts really quickly. In AD9,
yeah, that's exactly what I was going to ask you if you want to talk about 9, and remind people again what area is District 9.
Yeah, so AD9, it's not easy to say it because the lines are always changing and they're drawn interestingly, but Haven Woods, Granville area, the Meadows, if you live in any of those areas, Bradley Estates, if you live in any of those areas, you are an AD9 resident. Meadows is also referred to as the Woodlands occasionally. So yeah, AD9 folks are talking about safety, obviously gun violence and reckless driving and how that's impacted folks' lives and taken folks' lives. They're talking about housing. We know that the city of Milwaukee loves to develop a project to address housing, and residents have some concerns around the housing that's been developed by the city of Milwaukee. And reckless driving, safety, housing. Oh, and mental health is the other thing that's come up a lot. And really the intertwining between mental health and what we perceive as crime, or like how we get to this place where we feel less safe in our communities. People are seeing that as closely tied to mental health.
Yeah, thanks for that. So then let's talk a little bit about, so we know the first thing that we always want to talk about is what are residents saying? So in response to what residents are saying, what are some of the candidates in Aldermanic District 9 saying? What are they saying they want to do about reckless driving? What are they saying they want to do about potholes? What are they saying they want to do about access to services for young people and other residents?
That is a great question. So unfortunately, when hot button issues come up, like this is a thing right now, some of those normal conversations and normal issues you hear a lot less about. So potholes, I haven't heard enough folks really addressing the pothole question or like the condition of streets. What we are hearing a lot about is reckless driving, folks talking about speed bumps and engineering. I've heard a lot about this sort of 3 to 4 tiered approach. Involving education, so like driver's ed classes, making them free, bringing them back to schools, engineering speed bumps or roundabouts, or looking at other cities' development plans and what are they implementing to re-engineer their streets to make them safer and deter reckless driving. Enforcement, and unfortunately, in my opinion, folks are talking a lot about how we get more aggressive. So, how do we, I think I'm hearing a lot about reclassifying how we respond to reckless driving. So making it less of a reckless driving issue, or like, if you get a ticket or if you are charged with the crime from reckless driving, not just giving you a ticket that you can pay, but like impound the cars. What else are folks talking about? Arresting folks and sort of reclassifying so that they receive maximum time. I think it's unfortunate that that punishment route is enforced, but folks are talking about in the most egregious situations, when someone is a repeat offender of reckless driving, or if someone loses a life, how can we be aggressive in terms of enforcement? And so that 3 E's approach is what folks are talking about in terms of reckless driving. In terms of mental health, folks are talking about, we have to address it. We have to work with, I think, folks talk about a need for increased police presence to some degree around mental health. And I think for the most part, my understanding is that folks are thinking when a mental health issue reaches a point at which de-escalation is not an option, like how do we get police involved and how do we retrain them? How do we give them the proper tactics so that it can be as nonviolent as possible? Folks have talked a little bit about the non-police response that was brought up in Shantia's tenure in Aldermanic District 9. So like, who else can we call out as professionals instead of police? And getting ahead of it too, like what can we put in place to just know the signs, right? To educate our communities on, what mental health looks like on a spectrum, not just the most, egregious versions of things, but what does mental health look like and how can we know the signs, know ourselves, and be a support to our communities?
Okay. So it sounds like people are addressing some of the concerns that residents have. I want to encourage people to visit, to check out the link that we're going to be dropping in regards to the blog. So we've shared it in the Facebook event and we've shared it on our social media. But if you haven't had an opportunity to check out the blog where Raisha digs a little bit deeper around some of the issues that are more related to each Aldermanic district, please take some time to look over that. Right. Let's talk a little bit about Aldermanic District 5 as we wrap up this portion and then move to the youth prison. What are some of the issues that, because a lot of people don't really know a whole lot about Aldermanic District 5, which is on the edge of the suburbs, where Alderwoman Dodd used to be the alderperson. What we're hearing is there's actually a community of people that live there and are kind of the voices in that space. What voices are we hearing and what are we hearing from residents in regards to what community of people live there, what people's needs are, and what's coming up from some of the candidates?
Yeah, my observation, and it may be because of the fact that the first forum for 85 happened last week and the first election date is next week. So that's a part of it, right? Another part of it is that, in my opinion, some of these folks are a little inaccessible. So, that says some things for me in terms of electing our next, Aldermanic District 5 electing the next alderperson.
Can you say something about what do you mean by they've been inaccessible in your opinion?
Sure. Yeah. So, have had to track down folks and Google, how do I get in contact with this person? Folks don't have campaign pages. And this is happening in both districts, but folks don't have campaign pages. So you got to Google them. There's not like a public email address or phone number that you can find to access this person. And so maybe you have to go to social media from there. I even heard for the forum that happened in 85 last week, they had to track down two of the candidates, and one of them, I don't know if they even heard from that person. So you just can't reach the people. So that's one thing. And so I say all that to say, a part of the reason that I'm about to say what I'm saying probably has to do with the fact that there hasn't been a container created to access these people in enough time. But I'm hearing less from residents of 85 who aren't running, right? So I've talked to a number of the candidates, even, you know, in brief passing at their campaign events or at the forum. And yeah, a lot of them are folks who have been in government, or if not like city government, have worked for some committee or some office that handles our city services, and or they are retired police officers, so they've retired from the force, or they have some connection to a sheriff or someone who has worked in law enforcement in the city or county. And so those are the people who are the loudest in the room, and they're often candidates, not residents.
So we have someone in the chat, Rashida Butler Jackson. She's actually one of our board members, and she's encouraging people. Hey, Rashida, thanks for joining us. She is encouraging people to reach out yourself to these candidates. If you have some questions that you want answered and you haven't heard of a forum, you haven't been invited to a forum, no one's knocked on your door, we have some very specific information. I think, Raisha, do you have links in that blog to the candidates that you were able to find contact information on? Is that in that blog?
I think I had my complete list of contact information compiled like the week after we published the blog. But okay, if folks reach out to me, we can drop my email address in the chat and I can share my comprehensive list of contact information with folks, no problem.
Yeah, so again, if you're interested in getting contact information, if you haven't been able to find it, it's nowhere to be found. No one's come knocking at your door. You have no idea when the forms are. Somebody just actually reached out to me today and said, Marquesa, I'm looking for home ownership in some of these areas, and I have not been able to find any information yet. It was Krista, and I see she's also dropping in the chat. She's a resident and has no idea what's going on. Yes, Krista, please reach out to Raisha. If you could drop that information, Devin, in the chat to her email, just in case some people are gonna, have to drop off early. You're not gonna be very much longer. But again, you have every right to reach out to them. And as Rashida said, ask them for clear outcome-based plans. What do you plan on doing in the first 30 days? What do you plan on doing in the first 60 days, 90 days? And why haven't I heard from you yet? You are asking for people's votes, and some people haven't even heard from you. They don't even know what you look like. They don't have any idea, and you yet are on this ballot. But let me not get on my soapbox. So, Raisha, are there any final thoughts you want to talk about in regards to the two upcoming, the upcoming election, these districts, what you've heard before we hop to the youth prison?
Not really. I think you really hit it on the head. Some of the candidates I've spoken with have their phone numbers, cell numbers, QR coded on their literature. And they're like, I want everybody to reach out to me. So definitely reach out. They're expecting y'all to call them, text them, email them. So yeah, get in contact with me and I can share their contact info with you. And they're charged with being responsive. And yeah, I think that's it.
Don't mind me. Everybody should be drinking water. So if you catch me taking a sip, Devin, when he's normally doing Facebook Lives, he's always got his water. So Devin, I've got my water, and I encourage everybody else, if you haven't had water this afternoon, take a sip of water.
Get that.
Okay, let's talk next. Thank you, Raisha, for all that information. Raisha's been doing such amazing work to reach out to the candidates. And she's not just doing this for her health. She's not just doing it because she gets a paycheck. She's doing it because she cares about the residents. She cares about their needs getting met. We care about what you all need to ensure that we're going to have a thriving city, thriving communities, and that you all have access to the people who are claiming that they want to take care of residents' needs. So this is why we do this work. It's so important. All right. So, right, let's talk about what's next. So tell us what a youth prison. There's a youth prison coming to the northwest side of Milwaukee. I know it, but can you tell the people who probably on this Facebook Live, raise your hand or whatever it is you need to do, drop in the chat. Have you heard that hand emojis, whatever it is, Have you heard that there is a youth prison coming to the Northwest Side? I'll wait. Let's see.
Yeah, hand up emoji if you've heard about that. Thumbs down emoji if you haven't.
Hand up, hand up emoji or whatever you have to do. We want to know, have you heard about the prison? And Rye, give us some details about what in the world are we talking about when we say an actual youth prison is coming to the Northwest Side of Milwaukee?
Correct. So the state of Wisconsin's Department of Corrections has identified 7930 West Clinton Avenue as a site to build a youth detention facility, which they've called a, state-of-the-art school, or like similar to a school, to that location. Super brief history, and we'll drop both a blog and a podcast in the chat for you to hear more of the in-depth history. But the brief history, the brief version is a few years ago, it's arguable where this really started. It could have been as old as like 10 years ago. But due to some of the harms experienced in Lincoln Hills School for Boys and Copper Lake School for Girls and northern Wisconsin, and some lawsuits that came from those abuses, and pressure that the governor at the time, Scott Walker, and his administration were experiencing because of those abuses and lawsuits. And, the timeliness of reelection, right? It was time to reelect Governor Walker and his administration at the time of these lawsuits and things. Essentially, it was ordered that Lincoln Hills and Copper Lake be closed. But there's the pretense that, okay, we can close these prisons to address the harms and blah, blah, blah. But we have to, this is the idea, we have to redirect or relocate the young people who are housed in those prisons to different sites across the state of Wisconsin. And so there's a laundry list of places that were looked at, and I think we're seeing Kenosha were some of the places that were looked at as well as throughout Milwaukee County. And because of, it seems like size and proximity to residents, 7930 West Clinton Avenue is the one that fit the bill. I will also say that another site that was looked at was the Fillmore's Old Cheney building. I think it's on Fond du Lac, which provides some services to folks reentering and stuff like that. And that was going to be the site that folks were pushing if they didn't find an alternative site. And so in order to keep the Fillmore's Cheney building up and running, keep those services provided to the community, both some, community organizations in the state of Wisconsin's Department of Corrections identified 7930 West Clinton, so that the Fillmore's Old Cheney building would have to be torn down. And so, so this prison is slated to come to the northwest side of Milwaukee in AD 9. And I think the next step involves the DOC submitting a proposal for building the prison.
What's the DOC?
Sorry, the Department of Corrections. But them submitting a proposal for the design and everything like that to are creating sort of the proposal and submitting it to contractors to develop. They've already received a portion of the money from the State Building Commission. They've already received local approval from the city of Milwaukee, which has voted in favor of it, as long as, I think the conditions are, meet with the advisory committee in 89, the Granville's advisory committee, limit to 32 beds. And I think those are the provisions. So yeah, as long as they fall in line with those things, the city approves and they can bring the prison to the northwest side of Milwaukee. So yeah, now they're just drafting their proposal for contractors to build the prison.
I got all types of questions. All types of questions. And if you have questions, make sure you drop them in the Facebook link and we'll try to answer as many as we can as we're getting ready to wrap up in a moment. Right. Where was resident input in this whole laundry list I see in your blog? You said there was some legislation that was drafted in 2018. So between 2018, when they're talking about closing this, until here we are, 2023, and they're talking about now dropping this into our community, where in the world did they reach out to residents through this process, whoever was involved, to see, is this what they wanted? And second follow-up question, if you can add this, is how much is this going to cost and who's paying for this prison?
Good questions. Yeah, so Senator Lena Taylor has worked side by side with the Department of Corrections and some community organizations that were identifying the site, an alternative site to the Famers Chaney building. And so she said she's led some meetings with local community stakeholders like business owners and things like that. But I don't think the first public input session had come out before September of last year.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. So you're saying that there's now this like a whole timeline that's developed to bring a whole violent institution to our Northwest side. And you're telling me that the first time that you're hearing, that you heard, that there were some conversations led specifically by Senator Lena Taylor, and maybe there was some other conversation that we don't know about, but you're saying from a person who's been kind of helping to lead that the first conversation was in September, and now the ball is completely rolled out that this thing is about to happen.
That's correct. So, after the meeting, I think it was September 28th or something like that. So the tail end of September, I saw actually, and I can share the graphic that talks about the process. But I saw this graphic that, the DLC and folks had outlined, talking about what this process would be. And we were on like step 6 or 7. And so the DLC, Lena Taylor's office, some community organizations had been working on, bringing this process forth well before it even reached public input. And they've gotten a lot of flack from residents who are like, why does it feel like the decision's already made? Why does it feel like these are formalities, these public meetings you've held? And I think I can probably count on one hand, 2 hands, definitely one, how many public input sessions there were, but why does this feel like a formality and like you're not really hearing us? And why does it feel like, yeah, y'all are already on your way? And the DLC and folks that they're allied with have said, listen, this is the best way to bring young folks who are housed in Lincoln Hills and Copper Lake home. Closer to their homes, closer to their families, be able to offer the young folks and their families counseling and other, services to redirect young folks' behavior. So they're saying this is the easiest way to do that because I think it's about maybe 60% of the young folks housed in those places are from Milwaukee. And so this brings them closer to their families and also brings them some culturally competent service providers or service provisions. But yeah, the residents are not buying it.
My little emoji hand and physical hand is up. You said redirecting some of their behaviors. So when we talk about redirecting some of their behaviors, does that include like restorative justice practices? Does that include, getting some of the root of why young people have unfortunately been routed in this direction? Has that been any talk? Is this facility going to provide that? And if so, was there ever any talk about a different type of facility?
What's interesting is that as I go to public hearings or public meetings and hear from residents who push back against the DLC, Senator Taylor, community organizations who've been championing this prison coming to Milwaukee, those are the kind of things they're saying, like, we don't need this. And you asked earlier about the money, $42 million to go to this prison in our community that's already divested from, that's going to impact our property values, it's going to impact our feelings of safety, it's going to impact like the traffic flow and what the community looks like and how the community is engaging with itself. We don't need $42 million to go to that when we already have these other things going on. We need $42 million to go to our young folks' schools and their development, community programs working with young folks. And it appeared to me that the DLC in them we're not hearing it. They're like, okay, that's cool or whatever, but right now we got to build this prison, and right now we got to find some place to put these people. And yeah, so it felt like they weren't. Yeah, I understand why residents feel like they were not heard, because at every turn, it was met with, we got to bring these young people home. This is the only way to get these people access to their families. This is the only way that they can have culturally relevant programming. And you know, this is the next best thing. Like, it's already better than what we've been doing. That's how it sounds, right? It's not like we're doing the best thing we can do, right? But it's better than what we've been doing, and we just got to do this right now. And that is probably why a lot of people feel like there's money in this, right? Like, folks just kind of care about getting, you know, getting the prison built. The money that, you know, some folks would make from housing these young folks in these facilities. And so on and so forth. To my knowledge, there was not a previous conversation about any alternatives to a prison, right? Like it always had to be a youth detention facility. The conversation has always been where, and it feels like that conversation happened behind closed doors. Residents are frustrated that they weren't involved in what would be coming to their communities. And yeah, now they're being called out about it.
Okay, so there's some things happening in the chat that I'm going to ask. This will be the last question. Also, if you could, within that question, Dr. Cass Bowers, our board president, is asking, can you say where we are on this step again? And then the last question is, can you answer why do residents, and why are we saying like, man, you know, why does the Northwest Side, why do we have to have the prison? Why are we talking about alternatives? People are wanting to know, why is this seeming like a problem for some people, whether it's us or other residents that we've talked to? Why do we see a prison on the Northwest Side and bringing Black and brown children home? Why do we see that as a problem?
Great question. Yeah, and folks can see my screen, correct, with the steps up?
Yes.
Great. So we're at step 10, where the DLC, the Department of Corrections, is finalizing their design, and then they will bid the project to contractors, who will, you know, they'll figure out who gives them the best bang for their buck in terms of building the design that they outline, and then construction will begin. We're looking at that not happening until 2025. And I think the design process and submitting the proposals, the request for proposals from contractors, I think we're looking at that happening in the fall of this year, but construction likely won't happen until 2025 or so.
Okay. So then what about, the question about, why is this a problem? Kids are coming home, right? Black and brown kids who are far away from their parents are coming home. They have to go somewhere. Why not them come home to Milwaukee?
I think the question still remains, is this the only way to bring them home? Right? And I would guess the answer is no. For example, I think I was listening in on one of the hearings and talking to a resident in the district. You know how you gossip about like what you're hearing and what's going on. And she was saying, well, if y'all want, to give some of the things they were talking about were like therapy, counseling, blah, 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 but also vocational services. They'll be able to be like trained and develop skills. Why can't we just fund Job Corps then, if that's the case, right? Like, why does it have to be a prison that we're funding? Why can't we do the same things that we want to do, bring folks closer to their families, redirect their behavior, get them counseling, all those things? Why can they not be in their communities or closer to like their homes doing those things? Why does it have to be happening in a prison? Folks are also just like pissed off that the process sucks, right? Like, y'all didn't even ask us. Y'all didn't even say, hey, does this make sense? Is this the best approach? Y'all just said, okay, I guess we're gonna build another prison since y'all don't like this one. And it's representative of a symptom of the prison industrial complex and what we know about carceral solutions. When we build a prison, it almost never gets torn down. That's number one. And so this is a thing, really a stain in our communities for forever and forever. And it also just pushes this problem that the state of Wisconsin has had for decades, for forever, about prioritizing carceral solutions. The answer is always build a prison, right? And we know that when people go to jail or prison, when they're incarcerated, even house arrest, all those things, without addressing the root causes, without addressing the things that get them there. And it could be a both and approach, right? Like, I think where folks like the DLC and electeds have us messed up is we understand where we are as a community right now, right? Like, we understand that we're not necessarily in a place where we can just say, okay, screw all the prisons, shut them all down, and let's do something else. We understand we're not there yet, but we can do a both and I think they mess up by just saying, no, we have to build a prison. We're not going to worry about the proactive stuff, right? While we are figuring out how to best address the fact that these prisons don't need to exist, we could still be thinking about, talking about, giving weight and time to what are some other options. And, folks like the DOC just aren't doing that. And Wisconsin has a problem with that. They continue to push that the solution to crime and addressing safety is to lock folks up. And that's the only answer. And we see that that's not getting us anywhere. We see that people who are housed in our carceral institutions often wind up back there, right? And so are we really redirecting folks' behavior in the first place if we have such high recidivism rates? Or, we know people in our lives who, after the first time they go to jail or to prison, they go back. So what are we really doing here? That's the issue.
What are we really doing here is the big question. Are we just going around in cycles of violence? Are we not addressing root causes to violence? Are we not providing young people with the education, the cultural opportunities, the jobs that they need? What are we doing? And when we talk about, I hear you, good hair, I see you in the chat saying like, trying to, I hear you trying to find some of the positive things, this will create more jobs. Why can't we create other jobs? Why do we have to create jobs? Because I don't know if you know anything, good hair, and you may know very specifically about some of the things that happen in Lincoln Hills. What is going to be different in Milwaukee? It's a prison. What is going to be very much different? If we're creating the same type of structure, the same type of institution, the same thing that happened in Lincoln Hills is bound to happen in Milwaukee. I think that we can create much better jobs, much better opportunities, and get much better outcomes if we are starting to look at the root causes to why the young people got there. And if you're not doing that and you're not addressing that and you just put a Band-Aid on it and say, oh, we're going to put them through this vocational program, and you're not going to take the time to just take a moment to find out let's peel the layer of the onion back, several pieces, and find out how you got here, young man, how you got here, young lady, how you got here. And let's work on that. And that's not what I'm hearing that this is going to be about. But we got to wrap this conversation. It's been so juicy. It's been so juicy. Thank you, Krista, for joining us. I know you hit me up in the inbox earlier today, asking very much about this. I am so excited to be in community and conversation with you all. We have a couple links we want to drop about some next opportunities to join us. Rye, thank you so much again for all of the work that you've been doing. Also around what's been happening with the youth prison. It's been like an octopus to follow you guys. You have no idea the information that Rye has been gathering just to bring this to you again. Please visit our blog. Devin, if you could drop that link again to share with folks how they can read more about what we've been learning about the youth prison. We'll continue to keep people updated on our Facebook page. Right, but in the meantime, can you tell folks how they can connect on some next steps, like if they want to be involved in some more conversations and work with us?
Absolutely. So one of the first things you can always do is I believe we dropped my email address in the chat earlier. Reach out to me. Let me know you're concerned or have questions or have some energy and want to do something with it. And we can talk about the next steps. There is a coalition that the Roundtable currently sits on, No Youth Prison Coalition. I think it's led by Milwaukee's Democratic Socialists of America, that Milwaukee chapter. And they've, created a statement and a petition that a couple other organizations in Milwaukee have signed on to, I think Lit, Block, to name a few. But yeah, I can talk to you about opportunities to engage with the coalition. The first one is the petition, which says instead of building a prison, Governor Evers, use your executive powers to enact a moratorium on the serious juvenile offenses that young people who would be housed in this prison. Let's just get rid of those offenses, make this prison not necessary to build, and look at some more proactive approaches and like alternative approaches to redirecting our young people and investing in our young people. So that's what that petition says. We're dropping a link in the chat for you to sign. If you want to know more about what the coalition is up to, they have 2 meetings that you can join to either listen in or ask questions or share, what are your visions and what could we be doing instead, and help inform the strategy of the coalition. You can reach out to me and I can get you in connection with the coalition and tapped into those meetings as well. But those are some of the urgent next steps. I also just want to wrap up here by saying that I hear how almost just defeated and like discouraged residents in the district feel, because I mean, this is a 12-step process and we're at step 10, and we weren't even brought into the process until last September, even though it's been going on since at least 2018, or harms and lawsuits were happening earlier as well. So I hear that folks feel like, dang, what am I supposed to be doing when this thing is coming, whether I like it or not? And there's all these other things that my community needs. One thing I'm thinking about is, and the roundtable is also always thinking about, is when the community says, my community needs this, I need this on my corner, on my block, in my Aldermanic district. I just need the money to do it. How do we get more money into the community so that folks can make their visions come true and see the communities and the worlds they want to see? And our answer to that is participatory budgeting, which has happened across the country, and folks are seeing success with it in, I think, Chicago, Seattle, et cetera. But give Aldermanic districts their own pots of money, since the city governments either don't have capacity or interest or whatever in responding to the needs of the community. Just give the communities themselves their money, and let them identify leaders who can develop a process for identifying or receiving proposals from community members in terms of what they want to see funded, vote on those proposals, and then use the money that they have in the communities to make those proposals come alive. And so that's our solution. We've been advocating for that through our Liberate MKE campaign for the last 2 years. And now we're taking it a step further this year. And, maybe I'm giving things away here, but we're looking at our own participatory budgeting process, and we're saying, hey, y'all.
Coming soon. Ryan's getting excited, and we got a whole rollout on how we're going to do that. But yes, we are going to be doing some work to make sure residents get what they need and the opportunities they need. We can't always wait for the systems. We can't wait for the systems. We have to be building what we want. And so in closing, there's another opportunity. We said Black History Month, right? So some of y'all just celebrate during I don't know, maybe some of y'all celebrate just during the month, but we celebrate all year long. And to give an opportunity for people who are looking for something to do for Black History Month, we are actually hosting a Black History Month political education, where we're going to talk a little bit more about our politic around abolition. Why abolition? What do you mean no police and no prison? I don't understand what in the world you're talking about and how you could even say it. Come learn with us. There's a link that we're going to drop right now. Come join space with us. We'll have some snacks, some conversations, more of this great dialogue, right? Between 11 and 1 on the 25th. We would so love to see you. You can join virtually or in person. Just complete the link and you'll get more information. You'll hear from Raisha, who's going to be leading it, along with one of our other roundtable members. This has been so amazing to be in space with you all. We clearly have to do Facebook Lives more often, right? So this can't be the last time. There's so much information we always want to share with residents and want to be in communication with you all. So we're super duper excited to share that. No, Devin, the link around Black History PE under next steps and announcements, if you could find that to drop. So yeah, it's just been a pleasure to have you guys with us in the chat. Just give us drop us in the link. How are you guys feeling after this conversation? Just drop some ways in a link that you're feeling. I want to shout out some people. Thank you, Angela Harris, another one of the African American Roundtable board members. Thanks, Jay Tucker, for being in a space with us. Good hair, Dr. Cass Brown, Rashida, Liza, all of you all, my mom, Shirley Tucker Funches. Thank you all for participating in this space, for being present, for just being active civic participants in your community. Thank you so much. And please share this link with other people. We want people to have more information. Remember, reach out to Raisha if you need support with trying to get in touch with some of the candidates that we've been able to get in touch with. Again, we're a nonpartisan organization. We're here just to share information, be in community with you all, and help to bring Milwaukee to the place where we know it can be, which is a thriving community for all of us. Rai, any closing words?
No closing words other than thanks for being here. And if you're interested in learning more about PB, participatory budgeting, hopefully we dropped our webinar in the chat, so you can just come and learn about what we're talking about there too.
All right, it's been real. And Shamika Moore, our office manager, I can't forget you. She's been quietly in the chat on Facebook. Thank you so much for your support. Everyone, if everyone has been great, don't forget to check out those links. Join us in some of our next community spaces. With that, take a breath. Drink some water, have some dinner, love on your loved ones, and practice joy always. Peace, y'all.
Be safe.